this is our last day of the conference, and we are starting now, my friends. Then today we have a very interesting program. The first is the keynote session number 5. We have Nadia Staroselsky from the Universidad Austral de Chile, Southern University of Chile, that is placed in Valdivia, isn't it? In Valdivia, in the south part of that beautiful country that is Chile. And she is the ICT director of that university, and she's very interested and involved, engaged in the development of ICTs in university, not only in her own university, but in general in Latin America, because she belongs to, I think it's an important network that is called Metadata. MetaRed, yes, MetaRed. It's like meta network that include many universities in Latin America, and she's playing a leading role in Chile in this network. And by the way, in these weeks, next week or two weeks later, Mexico will hold an important conference of that network. Well, thank you very much, Nadia Staroselsky, for coming, and she is presenting the paper called "The Role of the IT Director of Higher Education in the Era of Digital Society, the Need to Create Synergy." She's going to present mostly in English, and if she has some trouble, we can help Alejandro, Bitze, and myself. So thank you very much again, Nadia. Very welcome to Mexico and my own institution also. And please, go ahead.
Okay, anytime. Thank you, Germán, for inviting me to this Congress. My English is so bad. I apologize if you don't understand me. I will do my best. I have note here. If you don't understand, please let me know. I can speak in French also, or in Spanish, and someone help me for translate this content. Well, my speak is about the role of IT, of the IT director in higher education in the era of the digital, or the digital era, and why we need create some synergy in the university. In the first here is the first of all, I want to show you how is the state of the university in Chile, because we have special education, higher education, and secondary education in Chile. And after all, I need to, then we will discuss about the structure of the IT director in Chile. And later I will show you a technological profile of our students, and then we will move on how are generating synergy between the technical area and the academical area. Finally, some conclusion. If you have questions, we can talk about that after my presentation. Okay, we go. Some question on some fact we have now, or I have in my university, if how we or have heard that we should innovate in teaching. All in the university said we should innovate in teaching. Educational technology are essential for innovation. Okay, information technology are strategic in different institutions. There has been widespread increase in the use of smartphone and access of internet content. And we have a huge amount of information of different students, staff, etc. And we have implemented diverse technology aimed at supporting the process of learning with innovation and improving innovation process in mind. However, are we clear about that is happening in our right now in our institution? If I ask you, you know that what happened in the university in this thing. In the case of my university, we don't have. We don't clear about what is happening. And first of all, I need to explain what is my country. It's a large, very, very, very large country. It's been more than 40,000 kilometers, and is very, very centralized. If you see here, this is the number of university per region, and this is the number of people that live in this region. And you see, it's a centralized country, and my university is in this region. It's in the south of Chile. We have present in Los Ríos, Los Lagos, and Aysén region. Okay, and if you show the population of this region is menor, se dice, es menor, es más chica, or it's lower than other region, okay? In the other slide, we can see the, I don't know, here. It's the same? Yes. In the other slide, we can see the kind of school we have in Chile. I need to explain that in Chile, the education is segregated, okay? Based on family income. Not, if you are a family with a low income, you don't have the same education if another family who has good income for education. Our college with free education in my country are the state education here, no, the state education, and we have also subsidized school, and we have private school. And college with free education have serious differences around providing the necessary content to their students, which transfer to their arrival in higher education. Subsidized college have a higher quality of education, and private schools are those which deliver the best content, but in turn are only able to a small percentage of family due to their high fees. Okay? And if you see the the number of students in the private school is lower than the number of students in the municipal or subsidized school. I think 33% of the students are in subsidized, no, 53% of students are in subsidized school, 36 in state school, and the other is in public school, okay? And if we look at the chart, we have seen that there are a high concentration of privately educated students in the center of our country, here, okay? In Santiago and Valparaíso, the students are, the private students are concentrated here to enroll in the university, okay? In my region, we have a lot of people come from state school or subsidized school. And this is a consequence of the all universities are being found in the center of my country and with the highest concentration of work, also be found in the capital, Santiago. This is the result of public policies that reinforce the centralization, okay? Here I have another table who show where my students are from. My students are from the neighbor region for us, and is this. And I will low enrollment by type. Here it is. And is for my students are from the neighbor region, and here we show that student who has free school. In Chile, when you study in university, you can study free when you are in family who has low income, okay? But you can study in some university, not all the University of Chile, okay? The higher education is free when you become from a family with low income and you study in a good university. And with the new policy of the education, the student who can study free for the time of the career. If I can put that in here. If my career in my program is for 5 years, my free education is for 5 years in higher education. If I reprove some content and I need more time, I lost my free education. And this is terrible for us because we receive a student who has deficits on content, and we need to put in a label to know to success academic, to have success academic. And we think that in this case the technology is so important to label our students and has success education. Do you understand? I say it because I don't know if you understand that I say now. The words, yes? Okay. And if you show in my chart here the free education or the student with free education is upper in the past year. In 19, we have 53% of our students with free education. And with free education and some problem with content to entry or to enter is true, and to entrance in university. Okay. Okay. And when I show this to my rector, to my chief, I said I need to do one, and technology is necessary or is a possibility to deliver or to help our students. Okay, now I will take a brief look of the situation of IT director in Chile, and because I want to do in my university, we need some strategic position. If we don't have some strategic position, if I can't help the student to go better. Okay, in this chart. I show you a national study who show the organizational dependence in IT organization or IT administration. In the last year, here, the IT management depend of one label, and this is good because they work, or the IT director or the CIO work with the gerente or CEO, or work with the rector, etc. But more than 50% is in the second label, and in this way they don't consider strategic. Okay, in the case of university in Chile, no more than 10% are in the second label, and we are considered strategic in our university. Here is the situation in Mexico. This is a study. I think this study is the same of in Spain. And in this study, the 21% of the IT director or the CIO depend of here is the rector, our director general director. Okay, but more than 70% of the CIO depend on the second label. It's better than Chile, but it's not good. Okay, in Spain, the situation is different because more than 40% of the CIO are vice I don't remember the name, is Vice Chancellor of in this institution, and they are vice chancellor. I think they are in the second level of the organization. And 60% of the CIO in higher education were on the strategic board. Okay? Okay, this is for understand where the CIO are in the university or what kind of strategic they can do in the university. Director, now I going to talk about the role of the director of IT and the role of this person with educational technology. Okay. Here. Okay, here is a question. What do we do as IT management now? Now we are considered support direction. We have a lot of technological IT in our university. We have Wi-Fi, we have system, we have a lot of things, technological things, but we don't are in the core of the university, who is the education. Okay. The question is, do we use educational technology here to add value to the educational process of our university? This question I do for my rector. And do we know how to do so? Or what is the role of me, IT director, in this part of digital transformation of university? Or I have a role here. Okay, and MetaRed Chile is a group of persons who are joined please, here. MetaRed Chile brought together the IT director of Chilean University to encourage collaborative work in 5 topics associated with IT: indicators, IT strategy, educational technology, supplier, and security. This year, we have a meeting with the CFO or financial. In Chilean University, one of the IT management key objectives is to support us the technological service need for the smooth running of the organization. Our function is not linked to the core of our mission, let alone sitting with the board to handle strategic topics. If one of the key objectives is the education of our students, why aren't we working with our counterpart in the other academic area in order to incorporate education technology that create value for our students and our institution? It's likely that in many universities, large investment being made in educational technology through internal and external projects without attaining the value desired. And we have lost hope. In my university, at least, investment have been made in project driven by academic, but we don't have institution-wide outlook. And when the resource run out or the person who drove this initiative leave, the initiative also ends. We should create synergy for an institutional model in which all the stakeholders are convinced that educational technology will have an impact if and only if we change our teaching methodology and acknowledge the technological profile of our student and academic. Okay. And for do that, we have some difficulty, because how to change the academic culture so that the impact of IT on the education process can be understood and incorporated? How to make the IT area into a point of reference of technology in the educational process, become a partner in this process and not to be an IT support. How to create synergy in order to involve together with educational technology. Do our students know the potential impact of technology of our education? And with that, I show you some study we have in Chile. This is a study who did the state, and this study is meant to determine the level of development of TIC skill for learning to the student who has 50 years old, okay? Its objective is to evaluate via virtual environment the capacity of a student to resolve problems and complete real schoolwork in a digital context. If we show that, I think the letter is so small, but here in blue is they use this technology all days, in some days of the week, some days of the month in green, and they never use. This chart is the use of technology at school. As you know, if you see now, they use technology for social network, to chat, to navigate in browser, for entertainment, and that. This is the three first. And in here, in the other, in this circle, there's the use of information or the search of information at internet for the task or for the work in the school. Okay, regarding the use of computer in an education setting, they tend to search for information on internet to study or to do some school work. But the first is not to do school work. This is in school. And when we go, how they use the computer or the IT in the house is so bad, because they use only for social network, for chat, for navigate, for entertainment, and for download music, etc., etc. Okay, then don't use their computer for study at home. And in the same research here, the 98% of the students have a computer at home in Chile. It's good that, and 76% have internet access in Chile. They say Also, the majority of students indicate a desire to improve their computational proficiency and declare an interest in technology. They don't use for learning, but they declare it's important for. More than 50% state that they connect daily to social media, to chat or to talk, and 66% look for information on the internet to study or complete tasks at least once a week. And 50% of the students say they don't use a spreadsheet. They don't know what is a spreadsheet when they have 15 or 16, 8 years old. We have a great gap of education or digital education at school. This shot is in my university. When the new student arrive, we do some question. The first question is, what technology do our new students have and use? In the last year, the use of our smartphone is increased, okay? And in 2017, they have the peak of the smartphone in the university. And the notebook is a device they have all the time. But if I go to this chart, I know or I see that it's not important if I have problem or financial problem because I am not a rich family. It's not different. I have a smartphone. And I have the students who have free education in my country have more smartphone than a student who pay fee. I think this is because the student needs to, or I believe that there is a social need to transcend family economical situation, making it necessary student to possess a smartphone no matter their social economical level. When we ask to our students what device they use to study, in 2018 and 2019, we have increased the use of a smartphone and a level increase to use notebook. But we believe that this increase to use smartphone is increasing the same way in the next year. Okay, and I have a question. Do you know what is the social network used to study now, the student now? Do you know what is the social media they use? Facebook? Yes? Facebook or Instagram? Okay. YouTube? Yes, it's true. This is I think it's not clear, but this in blue is Facebook. Okay? And in the first study, it's like 95% of the students use Facebook. Now, in this year, is 48% of the students use Facebook. Okay? In 2016, 45% of students use Instagram, and in this year, 83% use Instagram. And the question is our professor, our academic, recently used Facebook to talk with our student, and the student don't use Facebook.
Facebook is for autos.
Huh?
Facebook is for autos.
Yeah. When I talk with my son, and I said, hey, why you don't you use Facebook or not? No, Mom, Facebook is for old.
Yeah.
For me, I'm old. I use only Instagram. I don't use mail. The students don't use mail. Don't use Facebook now. I think in 2 years after this study, Facebook is not here in my chart, and we need to move rapidly because the technology move very rapidly. Okay, and this is the last question I do to our student, and we say, what app do you use most often in your smartphone? Obviously, no social network, music, browser, and photography. And photography not so much. Okay, games, but e-readers, educational application, or this is news is not important for the student. And with these numbers, we need to generate some skill in our students when they enter entrance or enroll in the university. When they enroll in the university, we need give some skill or IT skill because they don't use technology for an educational profile. Okay, this is the use of Wi-Fi on behalf of my student. 4 years before, my university do a great investment in technology. Because the students say, we need Wi-Fi, we need Wi-Fi, we need Wi-Fi. The teacher say, I need Wi-Fi for my lesson, blah, blah, blah. And my director say, Nadia, you need put Wi-Fi in all the university. Okay, if you think that, okay. I think too, it's good have Wi-Fi in all the university. But for the Wi-Fi is for for educational issue, not for game, not for entertainment. This is a chart of the use of our Wi-Fi, student Wi-Fi, and the bigger is, you see what is Instagram. The bigger use of our Wi-Fi in a student is Instagram. And the second is YouTube. YouTube is good. I think I can learn, if I know search in YouTube, I can learn a lot in YouTube. And Facebook, Windows Update, etc. And also Netflix, we have. But in Netflix, we have a lot of good program for study. Not all is movies, okay? With that, I don't know. I have to answer with this comportation of our student. One is our student is boring in class because they are in class and the professor is teaching, and they boring and they use Instagram. Maybe is something we need to study, or they go to study, or they go to classroom and they don't want to study. I don't know. Okay, this is the comportation of our academics and staff. It's a little different because they use more navigator in internet, but they use YouTube, and the third is also Instagram in academics and stuff. Okay. Now my question is good to have a lot of Wi-Fi in the university, or we need to learn to our student or learn to our academic how to use this technology? Okay. Outside off. Okay. I passed this. Now we talk to some synergy we have created now in my university with the academic area, because due to the replacement of our LMS, the academic area, together with us, the IT area, should evaluate the use of and the difficulties with the current LMS. When we do some change in the university, is very, very hard, because the academic or the human don't like change. Okay, if we do some change, we need to do because it's better to do this change for our university. Okay, and we need some partnership between academic and IT areas, and we develop a survey for determine some teaching methods use our academic methodology they should be interested in knowing about, and LMS tools being used. This survey was responded for 3,090 academic. This is the result. When we ask how tools you use of our LMS, is in Spanish. Yes. The first here is I put my syllabus in my LMS. Wow. I make announcement in my LMS. I put my document in my LMS. And some task, but do you use forum, chat, lection, surveys, exercise, etc.? Nothing. Also is for support my presential or face-to-face class. These tools is not used for an active class. It's a passive class. And when we ask what social media they use. In the first is WhatsApp, I think, because it's very simple to use WhatsApp with the student. We can create group, and it's very simple to have communicate with the student. And Facebook, but we know Facebook is not the better way to communicate with the student. Instagram, no, it's not. And Twitter, the students don't use Twitter, generally don't use Twitter. Blogs, nothing. And what methodology you use? The first is face-to-face class. In Spanish is clase magistral. In English, I don't know what is the name. And traditional class is when the teacher hear the student, and the students only the teacher talk and the student. Okay. This is aprendizaje basado en problemas in English. Is when I learn I learn with case with some. I learn resolving some problems. Okay. This is the most form of teaching for teaching in our university, but gamification. This is aula invertida is flipped classroom, or when they study with other students. It's not the methodology they use. And with this with this number we have some congress or some talleres, ¿cómo se dice en taller? Workshop. And we do some workshop and invite all the academic to see some success or some or academic. We use some methodology with success. Okay. I think I hope they understand and they use this methodology. In this way, we are now in this way to shape our professional. The way to shape our professional. Okay. Nowadays, we must develop a student with personal interpersonal skill. Innovate learning by doing, learning by developing. The students now are not passive, the students are active, no? The students only, good or not good, they only are connected, the brain is active all the time. If academic talk, the student boring. Also, they need some active class. And we need to transform this education to the passive education to the active education. Okay, I pass this. This is some example we have in my university. Flipped classroom. This Professor Maria von Christmas used flipped classroom, and if you see here, they use IT, and if you see here, when they use this methodology, they have a little number of students who reprove is here, reprove the lesson, and maybe all the students approve the lesson or understand. And this another example in mathematics calculation. Mathematics in my university is very hard. It's very hard. We have a lot of reproof students, and this teacher used flipped classroom also, and they use video, and they use teamwork, and every workshop is evaluated, okay? And in the year they use this methodology, he has 22% of the students reprove, and the years before they have 26. This 5% difference is very, very good for this type of class. And this is 3D anatomy class. It's very nice because the teacher puts some 3D anatomy in 3D, all the anatomy class, and the student can move and learn about the different parts of the body. And because I think it's the time, conclusion, the integration of digital media in teaching and learning is a complex process of negotiation between different stakeholders with the university. Until now, there are only personal initiatives without an institutional view. In order to determine their need, we must know the technological profile of our students and academics. Alliance between stakeholders must be generated in order to initialize digital transformation, and it is of the utmost important that the rectory team make this initiative. We know that in MetaRed, we know that in this group we have in Chile, we know that for do some digital transformation in education, we need partnership, we need the rector or believe in this transformation. And we work for this target. Okay? This is my conclusion, and this is my group, in my team. In this photo is the director of undergraduate students, it's me, and this is a professor or academic whose skill is education and technology, and this is the MetaRed teams. Okay? If you have some question, this is in Spanish, is the transformation or the interactive class of some professor. Okay, they think the finger, interactive finger, interactive ad, interactive this projector, and innovator, professor, etc. And now I think the academics have a lot of work to do to go to the next or to give education to the next students with technology. Okay, eso es. I hope you understand my English.
Thank you, Nadia. Thank you so much for your great effort in order to make it possible to understand you speaking in English. Thank you so much. We appreciate a lot.
Claro.
I think you addressed very important topics about the role of administrators, ICT administrators, in promoting the use of technologies for educational purposes. We can think not only in learning or in teaching, but also in research and administrative matters and many other things that are very important to innovate in our university. So I think we can think a lot of things about that, including, for example, the necessary alliances between academics and administrators, because we as academics used to see administrators as our enemy. But on the contrary, I think we need to think in you as our allies, in order to make progresses inside universities. So this is we have some minutes to make questions and comments. Please go ahead, Abraham.
Nadia, thank you very much. I think it was very enlightful, your talk and your research. You have lots of information. You have lots of information that we may use. You pointed out that the main thing, the main priority is to empower the IT director. I agree with that. But my question is about the LMS. I think we may have many experiences how to choose and change the LMS. And who should choose to change, and how is the process to change or propose and improve the use of LMS?
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Someone else?
LMS learning system.
Martman.
Okay.
No,
Si
otra
alguien quiere
pregunta.
más, one more question or comment to put together and allow Nadia to integrate some answer? Well, if not, go ahead, please.
No, es que no estaba preparada.
No?
Okay. No more?
No more.
Okay. Okay. This change of LMS is academic definition. It's not IT definition. In IT, we know that it's important to change because our LMS is very, very old, but it's an academic. But when we see or we saw this result, the change of our LMS is not only a technical change. We must learn, or we must learn to our academics what use or what is necessary they use for a better methodology or a better o mejorar la forma de enseñar, to improve the learning. Because if we use or we change the MS for the same way, it's not necessary to change. Okay, we generate a problem to the academic, and they don't have. We don't improve with academic issue. Okay.
Okay. First of all, congratulations for the effort to try and convey your message to us. It is very difficult to think in Spanish and try and speak English, but I congratulate you for the effort. And also I congratulate you for the progress you have made, even with the difficulties that are present with the administrative part and the rector. I hope that you have shown the rector the results that you have achieved in anatomy and mathematics by the use of the flipped classroom, for example. No, I think that if the administrators know what is the results of using these methodologies, they may change their mind and be more supportive. So I think that is important for rectors to know what are the results of using technology for learning. The flipped classroom is obviously a very interesting perspective to use technology. I wonder if you have explored the possibility of using MOOCs to improve and to use them in flipped classroom, because this way you can save a lot of money, and instead of producing your own media, use what is available. Is Chile involved in MOOC production? And is your university interested in this?
I think in Chile is not way for study now. Is MOOCs is the different universities don't have MOOCs. I think one university use MOOCs. In my university, it's not a target now. I think in the next year or the next year is probably we focus in this target. I don't know why. I think we don't have the rector or the vice rector, academic vice rector. They don't put the necessary energy to the academic to do that. And the academics say, I need more time for do that, etc.
As a follow-up question, how about open educational resources? The OERs, are those in use in Chile and at your university?
Yeah, open education?
Open educational resources.
Yes. In Chile, we have some research in open education, but we don't have a lot of open education. No?
No more questions?
Just one more.
Yeah.
How about distance education?
Huh?
Is Chile involved in distance education?
Distance education is, some universities have distance education, but is not, maybe it's not objective of the university, it's objectives for some faculty. And this is more a social issue, is for a financial issue. Okay, and my university want to social education. No, if we go to the distant education, is for social education, not for money. Not for money. Okay.
Good morning. We are going to have a distinguished panel of 4 speakers, and we have about an hour and a half, and my intention is to give the speakers a little less time than they would be allotted if you divide the time exactly, because I want some discussion, I want some questions and some comments. We'll start by the order that the program has given us here. So we start with Undibe Bokopane from South Africa. She has a master in electrical engineering, and she is specialized on renewable energy. She is at the University of Bloemfontein in South Africa, one of the old white universities in South Africa that then opened up for so-called colored people and blacks after Mandela's revolution. So very interesting old university, one that has been in transition quite a bit since 1996 or so. She is a lecturer, and she is also the chair of the Women in Engineering in Bloemfontein. And believe it or not, there are 76 professors, lecturers in engineering in Bloemfontein. I think that is quite remarkable, because in most countries, women are still not on equal numbers in engineering and the other computer and so on sciences. So with that short introduction, I hand it over to you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ms. Lindwe Wokopane from the Central University of Technology. The topic that I'm going to discuss today is called the use of e-learning at a Central University of Technology and a higher certificate in renewable energy technology. My presentation outline is going to entail the following. I'm going to talk about the background of South African educational structure, higher education bodies and policies on teaching and learning. I would also talk about the CUT policies on teaching and learning. I'll talk about the teaching strategies in higher certificate renewable energy technology. I would also talk about how I use ICT in this University of Technology, and then have a small discussion and close with a conclusion. So a bit of background about the study. Before 1994, Black majorities in South Africa were denied access to higher education and subjected to what we called then Bantu education as a means to marginalize them. So in the dawn of democracy, we saw post-apartheid government trying to look into bridging this disparity of working and living condition through education. And from that act, we had a constitution. In that constitution, Act 108 of 1996, clearly states that everyone has a right to basic education, including adult education, further education, which the state, through reasonable measure, must make a provision of progressively available and accessible. So with that said, the government at the time appointed a commission that was tasked with mandating and scrutinizing the international policies to source the best practices whilst engaging the public for comment as an attempt to cater for the inclusive education. So in that effort to avail inclusive education, we had a number of policies that would actually regulate our education in South Africa. That era saw a birth of a South African Adult Education and Training Act. This act was certainly put there to regulate adult education, our training, and to make sure that the government has an opportunity to fund and establish a public adult learning, to also provide registration of these public and private learning centers, and to also provide transitional arrangement. And through that, we had a few things as a country that we were looking into. So with that era, there was a national coordinated adult education and training system, which was there to promote governance and to provide program-based adult education and training. This act or regulatory body also redressed the past discrimination and to ensure that now we have a representation and equal access to education. In ensuring access to adult education through training, we had now to actually match the workplace need and also to come up with different strategies to involve people that were marginalized in the past, such as the women, disabled, and people that are coming from disadvantaged communities. In that effort, we were able to pursue excellent and promote full realization of potential of every learner and a member of staff, and to also promote tolerance of idea and to appreciate this diversity. Speaking to that regulation, we had steps in building inclusive education and those regulations, and why do we need renewable energy as a certificate? Well, with now the energy crisis that we're facing in the world, we saw a need to come up with a structured educational curriculum that will address and also to make sure that the people that are working in this industry are well aware of how to maintain and sustain this project that would have been built by the government and by professionals like myself who specialize in different disciplines within the renewable energy technology. So with that, we had higher bodies and policies about teaching and learning in South Africa in order to make sure that we realize these goals of putting education in the public domain. So policies on the use of ITC in higher education was one of the policies that was dominant, and it served the purpose of addressing the topic that I wanted to actually talk about today in this conference. So it is said that information and communication technology, it is going to bridge the gap within the government, the educational sector, and also within the working conditions of South African people. So through this, we understood that higher education bodies would have to serve different purposes. So those higher education bodies that we normally have in our country include, but are not limited to, the following. We have the South African Council of Educators, which is basically there to make sure that we have a professional council for educators. We have HELTASA. So this network is basically for educators to share their research, teaching experience at a national level through teaching excellence. And the teaching excellence is also something that we have in different universities. And in my university, I won the Teaching Excellence for Early Career in Teaching last year, and I have been entered in the national level. And at a later stage, I'm going to share my teaching strategies as to explain why am I a winner in this category. We also have bodies like HESA, which is there to make sure that there is a growth in the next generation of academic, like myself, and how to actually involve more young people into the education of South Africa. And finally, I will talk about the Engineering Council of South Africa, which is a regulatory body that tells us exactly what the conduct of an engineer and what are the graduate attributes that we have to give our students on their exit level. So within the university, we also have different bodies. I am just going to run quickly through them. We have CILT, which is the Center for Innovation in Learning and Teaching. So this particular body works with various shareholder, faculty, students, and also the educator to make sure that we have a platform where we can grow the educators, and also to make sure that we are in line with what is required in industry. We also have a body called SOT-L. This is a scholarship of teaching and learning, which I'm part of. Actually here, they teach us how to write educational paper, and this would be my first educational paper that I'm writing to this conference. We also have a curriculum, academic staff development, which is basically where we develop different curriculum that are in line with what we want to teach to the student, so that they can function within the working environment. Also, what is one of the very important ones is the student academic development, which is basically where students have the opportunity to evaluate us as educators, to also evaluate the education that we are giving to them. And I will show you that through the slides as to the questionnaires that we normally give to the student and how they normally answer, and the percentages, how do we deal with that. We also have what we call ELET. The ELET is the e-learning educational technology, which is the body that actually tells us what type of educational technologies we can actually utilize at a university of technology in effort to deliver quality education. So in ELET, we use what we call Blackboard. So in Blackboard, we have a small platform that we call eTutor, and here on eTutor is where we basically do our learning management system. Finally, we have CUT policies on teaching, which inspired the Vision 2020 and STEPS, which is part of the curriculums that were set aside to actually deal with societal issues like energy crisis, the water crisis that we had in the country, and so forth. So here are my teaching strategy as an educator. Usually, I would give a provision of a detailed work plan through a study guide, and I would give the student study guide, practical guide to let them know exactly how many practicals they need to do, how much they weigh, and the study guide will tell them the when, why, and how, which would tell them why do we need these practicals, when do we need to do them, and how are they going to actually operate in society. And part of my teaching practices is to always have a pre-test. Before the beginning of every chapter, I normally like to ask my student what is it that they know with the particular chapter that I'm going to teach. And then at the end, I summarize the whole chapter and give a clear objective so that they know exactly what is it that they are going to learn, why are they learning it, and where are they going to apply it. And as part of my teaching strategies, I apply the following. And this teaching pedagogies, I put them on my LMS on daily basis. Once we're done with the face-to-face pedagogy, I would put it onto my eTutor, which is a blackboard in a normal language. So face-to-face pedagogy, I usually give them the slides. For example, in one of the classes that I teach solar energy systems. So in solar energy systems, I would give them the application of solar heating, and with that, I would then go into class to do computational learning so that they understand the design process onto how you actually size your geyser in normal language, or the solar water heater. And then after that, we would normally have argumentative learning where the student would debate different issues like your climate change and how does it affect our daily learning, and for example, what are the different weather patterns going to affect the results of our studies on this solar water heaters. And then, in most cases, I would have what we call a problem-based learning, where the learner would have to build a small scale of a particular system. For example, I would be specific as to let them know, do not do what. For example, most of them are very in the business of always going for solar when I ask them for different projects. So I will let them know, if I want you to generate a small power plant, you need to do it utilizing wind, geothermal. You would have to use biomass or biogas. So it's something that I make very clear, and I post this on my learning management system. And recently, we had a collaboration with University College London, where we actually did a crossover learning. In this, we were actually talking to our students on actually solving problems on how to change the world. So when we do that, we would let them know what is the SDG that they actually needed to focus on. For example, they would be given a platform to actually tell us, how do you intend to solve a problem like water crisis? And some of them would come up with ideas like coming up with sensors that are going to report leakages on the different system so that we actually save water. And some of them would come with irrigation system, and they would have to explain how that system is going to work. We give them time to refine their concept, and they need to present that idea to their peer. And in this type of crossover learning, it is not only the renewable energy students that sit down and discuss this problem. They are forced to work with people from different departments, such as civil engineering, information technology, and sometimes they do work with people from built environment and mechanical engineering. So usually our learning management system would look something like this, where I would actually give all the units that the students are going to learn and then show them inside that unit and put different slides in that. I would also put my practical guides, and in most cases I would also put the assignment and how to do the assignment, when is the assignment due, and give basic steps in form of Word to describe the step-by-step of this particular assignment. And once they have submitted the assignment on this learning management system, it grades them already, because the assignments that I give to the students, I build them into this learning management system. Usually at work, they give us training on how to actually put different assignments, tutorials onto our learning management system. So the student, after submission, they have immediate feedback, which actually tells them where did they go wrong and how many percentage they got, and they could click into their assignment and check how can they actually improve for the next assignment. I use this learning management system to actually let them grade me, and in most cases they would have to let me know how is my teaching, do they understand the things that I've been giving to them throughout the year. This is actually to check their level of understanding and how far I am with the syllabus and what I still need to emphasize on at a later stage to get them ready for exams. And also, this is usually the peer-to-peer evaluation where I would get a guest lecturer to come into my class and evaluate my teaching strategies and my teaching skills, and to actually give me feedback on what are my strong points and my weak points. So I thought I should put it up here so that you can see what is it I do on a daily basis. So this is still the questionnaires for the students. And something that I pride myself in is laboratory experiment-based learning, where the students get to actually demonstrate the ideas that they have learned in class and through an experiment. So this is an experiment in small wind generation. And here it's a small solar water heater that actually spoke to the idea that I posted earlier on. And here, it's one of their favorite. So here a student can actually decide on how an experiment is going to go. I only give them the theoretical aspect and they decide on how to give me different ideas of this. So for example here, they had to show me 3 different levels of heat transfer. So this particular student utilized the candle and wax and also a spoon to actually show that idea. And in conclusion, so the fulfillment and the aim of the qualification is actually addressed within my teaching strategies that fall in line with the policies of the university and the learning pedagogies that we should abide with as educators. And the academic performance and concept of this particular implementation, they have actually yielded positive results. Ever since I started this teaching strategies, the number of enrollment in that particular qualification has tripled. They started off with 15 students. At the moment, we're sitting at 45, and we get requests from industry because word of mouth travel quite good where I come from, and people are always praising how we actually teach because I attend quite a lot of training and I share my training with my students. Growth in the department has asked me to develop this the curriculum for bachelor's and honors in renewable energy. So it's no longer a case of us just offering a higher certificate. So in conclusion, this LMS has been very, very effective, and the effect of actually utilizing different learning pedagogies into the learning management system has been able to help the student. If I can just talk about, in 2016, we had what we call fees must fall movement that was all over the news. The students were not able to attend class, and I was communicating with them through this learning management system, and that is how they actually managed to pass their respective year, because my test, my assignment, and also my practicals and the exam was actually done on this learning management system. So they could do it at different libraries where we had securities to make sure that the protesters don't come in and disrupt them. And that is where I would end with my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
I would like to open the floor for question or comments on this presentation. I have to correct my introduction to the speaker. She did her studies in Bloemfontein, but she is now, as the title here, which is printed out in the program says, she is now at the Central University of Technology. Okay, questions, comments? Abraham.
Lynn, thank you very much. Amazing job you're doing. I am trying to set up a group of engineer degrees online, fully online. Many people say that it's impossible. What percentage of the idea should we have, and what percentage of online education should we have in an engineering degree, as your experience says?
You got the question? Yeah.
Okay, in familiarize themselves on how this equipment actually works. So if an engineering is for 50,
Any other questions or comments?
Says that pre-entrance exam information is as follows. For example, race and ethnicity, all fields are mainly white is majority, 66%. But engineering field, Asian is a minority, not minority, 49% is a majority. Gender female, all fields 39%, but engineering 30%. So female is less at engineering field, or something like that. Research environment, financial support, relation with faculty, relation with students, sense of belonging are as follows. This is a research result, table 4, 2 and 3 outcomes. From the outcomes, all fields 0 times is mode. But engineering, 4 or more times, 30% is a mode. But however, 20% of engineering is 0 times. Off-campus presentation, or 4 or more times, all fields 34% modes. Engineering, 39% is also mode. However, 70% of engineering is 0 times. Number of referee articles are as follows. For engineering field, 0 papers is 28.6% is mode. But 4 or more papers is 23.9% is second. Here is a determinant analysis using multivariate regression analysis. From the result, this model doesn't explain well, but statistically significant explanatory variables are as follows. For example, dependence. If a student has a children, has a positive effect to the refereed article. Travel funds, very positive effect, and advisory faculty is also a positive effect. But question as follows. Travel funds positively affects even on campus presentation and articles. Second, full support has no significant impact on research outcomes. 3, dependence have a positive impact on refereed articles. Why? This is a question. Discussion and conclusion. What I analyzed is that the research experience of doctoral students in the US research university focused with the engineering field. The data and framework are as follows. Hypotheses of factors are 1, relationship with faculty. 2nd, financial support. 3rd, external commitment. Analyze these variables and validated Tinto's hypothesis partially. 1, advisory faculty. 2nd, travel funds. But full support has no statistically significant. Fourth, dependence have positive effect. That is a reverse effect from the Tinto's theory. Why does strawberry fruits affect on campus? Okay. And second, why does full support not have statistically significant impact? My answer is as follows. Third, why are dependents having a positive impact? My answer is as follows. Walters, 1965, describes about the dependent allowance as follows. This is appendix table. Future tasks as follows, reference as follows. Thank you for your attention. That's all.
Thank you very much for this rich and abstract, somewhat abstract presentation on your research. I think very interesting. And I would invite comments or questions from you. If I may start with a comment, I mean, some of these factors seem to be pretty obvious without Tinto's research that sorry. And that is, of course, the importance of the relationship between the student and the faculty, the supervisor or other faculty. And the second one, the support they get from their families, from their dependents. I think very, very clear for everybody who has supervised students that these are two very important matters. The third one is the availability of some financial support. So I think that is probably not specifically Japanese and not specifically engineering students. I think that is a more general observation which I believe we can all share. Now, are there any particular factors that make engineering students different from the general student body? Would your research allow to say something about it?
Thank you. To your question, there is a big difference among fields. So today I concentrate on my focus, engineering. For the financial support is very different. As to the health science, they are very rich field. A lot of money coming from investment from government. But for humanities, many students use student loans to their studies. There are big difference among fields. So in detail, that is my research task in the future.
Mm-hmm. I think it is interesting, if I may comment one more point, unless there are more urgent questions. I think it's very interesting and characteristic for Japan that this initiative is not driven by individual universities, but is driven by Mombusho, by the ministry that is in charge of higher education. So this initiative you mentioned from earlier this year or so has apparently given, or is an incentive to be given to universities to really think about what it takes to improve graduate education, yes. Master and doctoral education. Yes. In a country like Canada, which is very decentralized and where the Ministry of Higher Education has very, very little to say about how universities do their business, we call that university autonomy. This would be very unusual, an initiative like this, and the universities would be free to either comply or not. That is different, I think, in Japan.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Any other comments or questions?
Thank you. I just want to point it out that here in Mexico, it could be a little difference between this variable about having independence, because here we don't have nursery schools for our kids, or even though support by government or anyone else to having kids and being a student PhD. I know that in private education here in Mexico, there is only one university, its name is Universidad Iberoamericana, who had nursery for the children, but it is only this is the only case here. And in public universities, I don't know if we had this support. Well, maybe it's because you are from Japan and we are from Mexico. That's all.
Thank you. A very good question. And situation is very same in Japan. So U.S. case is very good example for us to improve our graduate education. And in the digital society, we need propose the evidence with evidence for improvement. That please use this evidence for your Mexican country's graduation education. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for now? Okay, then thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we turn to our third presenter here. That is Moore Houston from the School of Education at the University of Glasgow. Moore was before at the University of Stirling, which is a smaller university also in Scotland, and is for the last 8 or 10 years in Glasgow. Glasgow is one of the leading universities in the United Kingdom with respect to education. So in all the rankings and the assessments of the what is called the research assessment authorities, Glasgow is on the top of the list. Having said that, Moore is very much an expert on the new technologies, social media, but he's also the ethical officer of the School of Education. And already when we briefly talked in the initial panel on Monday, he was mentioning the very important and increasing importance of ethical and moral questions with respect to the use of these new technologies in education. With that, Moore, it's over to you.
Thank you, Hans. So, the issue, big data in all its forms has vastly increased in terms of its scope and scale and covers almost all aspects of human life, our administrative, health, welfare, economic, retail, and increasing our social interactions. However, the introduction of legislation and the negative publicity surrounding the activities of certain academic researchers and private sector organisations in the access, use, sale, algorithmic agglomeration and the ability to link and aggregate our data has resulted in renewed efforts to provide some form of guidance in relation to both the ethical and moral dimensions to the use of this type of data in academic research. So, I see research governance as a three-legged stool, and the legs are research integrity, ethics, and data management. And if any one of these legs is not solid, then the research governance stool falls over. So, research ethics. Philosophically, we can trace back to the works of Aristotle and his Nicomachean Ethics, 350 BCE, and the pursuit of the good or the virtuous life. We can also see the works of Confucius in the Lunya or Analects, even earlier, around 500 BCE. In the absence of agreed guidelines, these aspects become more important in relation to big data and social media. develops in the social sciences. In order to maintain a climate of trust in the practice and outcomes of social research, it is inevitable that systems of ethical assurance will be established and will need to be maintained by all those engaged in work of this nature. The trust of the public, professional colleagues, those who commission and fund research, and those being studied requires an effective system of ethical review, clear lines of responsibility, and a manageable degree of independent overview. So, 5 ethics principles for social science research, and this is from our Academy of Social Sciences, the kind of umbrella body of social science learned societies. So, social science is fundamental to a democratic society and should be inclusive of different interests, values, funders, methods and perspectives. Should respect the privacy, autonomy, diversity, values and dignities of individuals, groups and communities. It should be conducted with integrity throughout, employing the most appropriate methods for the purpose. And all social sciences should act with regard to their social responsibilities in conducting and disseminating their research. And we should aim to maximise benefit and minimise harm. So, big data and ethics often differ from traditional research data in that they have not been generated specifically by researchers for research purposes. As a result, the usual ethical protections that are applied in several points in the research data life cycle have not taken place. The speed of development in big data and associated phenomena, such as social media, has surpassed the capacity of the average consumer to understand his or her actions and their knock-on effects. We are moving towards changes in how ethics has to be perceived, away from individual decisions with specific and knowable outcomes, toward actions by many unaware that they may have taken actions with unintended consequences for anyone. So a bit about the scale of big data. There is more data than ever in the history of data. From the beginning of recorded history until 2003, we produced 5 billion gigabytes. By 2011, 5 billion gigabytes every 2 days. 2013, 5 billion gigabytes every 10 minutes. 2015, 5 billion gigabytes every 10 seconds. And by 2025, they reckon there'll be 463 exabytes every day. And a graphic here showing some of where that data is generated. Every minute of the day, almost 4.5 million YouTube videos are watched. And Amazon ships over 1,000 packages every minute. Google performs nearly 4 million searches every minute of the day. So, big data sources, and I've separated these into what we might see as corporate and public. The list of corporate ones is well known. Facebook, Google, YouTube, the Internet of Things. Public tend to be censuses, longitudinal cohort studies, administrative data in relation to health records, social security, employment and income, and crime records. But there are some tensions in big data analytics. Drivers are corporate market share, customer profiling and targeting, while in academia, the public good and benefit should be key. However, academics are increasingly operating in a context of performativity, and so publications, funding, citation counts, and impact drive promotion. An example when these collide, the scandal with Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, which you might have heard about. There are also specific ethical issues in big data analytics. Analytics identifies relationships and small patterns across vast and distributed data types. New types of inquiry are enabled, including behavioural research on scraped data, tracking of fine-grained behaviours or preferences, and prediction of future behaviour. However, researchers have identified a number of both epistemic concerns and normative concerns in relation to how these algorithms are built and deployed. Social media and online ethics. What constitutes privacy in an online environment? How easy is it to get informed consent from the participants in the community being researched? What does informed consent entail in that context? How certain is the researcher that they can establish the real identity of the participants? When is deception or covert observation justifiable? How are issues of identifiability addressed? And how do country-specific legal requirements, e.g. for data protection, apply in internet-mediated research that crosses national boundaries? Specifically in relation to privacy, Swapman states, is the space being researched seen as private by its users? Are they aware they are being observed? Is everything really what it seems? Are Fred X and Mary Y really who they claim to be in relation to age, gender, or increasingly, is it an automated bot, machine learning, and simply making its own comments? And how do researchers ensure their participants really are anonymous? IP addresses are usually traceable. Tweets may contain identifiers. So, ethics in social media research, where are we now? This is a quote from a study by a leading research centre, I think based at the University of Cardiff, who are leading in this field. And they quote from research, early on in the research, we quickly realised that many of the learned society ethical resources were of little guidance, given their focus on non-digital data. Where addendums on using internet data were written, they had little to say about social media. Papers were being published in reputable journals with tweets quoted verbatim, with unacceptable and ineffective methods of anonymisation, and without informed consent from users. Moreover, research on users' views of the repurposing of their social media data consistently show that the majority wish to be asked for informed consent if their content is to be published outside of the platform which it was intended for. Some guidance. These are a number of flow charts and that set out how you may decide how to go about getting ethical approval for some studies. The first one is about Twitter. When can you tweet? When can you publish? When can you not publish? A framework on the ethics of using social media by Townsend and Wallace. And a major source and a major influence is the Association of Internet Researchers. And as you can see, these are quite dated resources, but we still have not a codified set of guidance and framework for work in this area. Our response. Traditional ethics processes and forms are not fit for big data and social media, so we created an alternative route specifically for this kind of data. We heard anecdotally people were working in these areas and not applying for approval, often citing, erroneously, a public domain defence. Some sections cited below. I'll not read through all these, but it's about specific terms and conditions, rules, legal requirements, etc., property rights, copyright, etc. Does the data contain personal data? Does it contain special category data which is more sensitive? Is the data open to being freely used? Will individuals be identifiable from published outputs? Because social scientists do not have an unalienable right to conduct research involving other people. That we continue to have the freedom to conduct such work depends on us acting in ways that are not harmful and are just. Ethical behaviour may help assure the climate of trust in which we continue our socially useful labours. If we act honestly and honourably, people may rely on us to recognise their needs and sensitivities, and consequently may be more willing to contribute openly and fully to the work we undertake. And finally, an afterthought. We've been talking much about complex data, big data, complex social, ethical and legal issues, and this is from the UK Information Commissioner's Office and a report on big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning and data protection. And on one side, we have the optimist view, welcome to paradise, and on the other, we have the pessimist view, Skynet from the Terminator films. Thank you.
Thank you, Moore, for this very dense presentation of issues that are new because of the way that data are being collected and the massive data that researchers can and must make sense of. Are there any reactions or questions? Shinichi. And then you.
Thank you, Hans, and thank you, Mo. Yes, big data is a very serious, cause a serious problem sometimes. And it's I think your presentation is the core of this workshop, because we are now surrounded by big data. So yes, research ethics is very important. But I think that real big data is not only dealt with academia, but most of them dealt with public sector or government, and also industry, especially the newly created big company. So my question is, what the role of researchers on big data? Of course, research ethics is very important for the activity of researchers, but also researchers in academia must watch appropriate dealing with data at the public sector or industrial sector. So what is your opinion? I would like to know. Thank you.
Did somebody catch that? I didn't quite understand the question. So I'm not sure I understood your question, but I think we need to be more proactive in designing systems to train researchers about the perils or the problems of big data. But I also think we need to look at the teaching. We are creating engineers, software engineers, who design these algorithms, and there has been many instances of these algorithms being biased or wrong, or in terms of their predictions. So I think not just the research side, I think when we're teaching, we need to teach our students about the morals, the values, and the ethics of what they are producing in terms of algorithms, data, big data analytics. I'm not sure if that answered your questions.
Ike.
Thank you very much, man. We've had that entertaining and interesting presentation. You touched on issues of ethics, especially when dealing with the big data. What I didn't get out of your presentation, it's the implication or the impact or consequences for policy in the context of digital society and higher education.
Well, I think I got towards that at the end, that as social science researchers, we rely on the trust of the public. And if that breaks down, we're going to have issues in terms of continuing to carry out research. There is also an increased legal requirement now around privacy, especially in the EU, with the introduction of the General Data Protection Regulations, which are very strong. And for breaches of privacy and ethical data under the GDPR, I think the possible fines for the university, if a researcher was found to have breached, the possible consequences are fines of up to £20 million or 4% of their annual turnover. So this is the consequences of breaching these privacy rules. These are very, very stringent punishments. No university, plus never mind the reputational damage. As Hans said, we are a very prestigious research university. At the moment in the UK, the Research Integrity Council is considering banning universities from applying for funding if they are seen to be breaching privacy regulations and conducting unethical research.
Okay, any other question or comment? Well, thanks very much, Moore. It's a highly topical item.
Just follow up. I think you're spot on in terms of your response to this, and just touch on what was discussed yesterday on issues of plagiarism. You gave us tons and tons of the data that is generated at different times and short space of time, and the projections going forward beyond 2025 and so forth. What's your take in regard to making sure that there is a low level of plagiarism as a result of really generating this multiple big volumes of data? Thank you.
In some ways, it's in the same way with artificial intelligence and machine learning. We have to have systems in place at the design and conceptual stage of these sort of things, I think, to try and understand and cut off at the pass, if you like, some of the potential issues. But I've got to say as well, we are all complicit in breaching our own privacy. It started off with software, with the user agreements. You would get click to accept, and you would anybody ever read all these when you put a new piece of software on, who've read all these terms and conditions that you're signing up to? Every time we put an app on our phone, we sign away our privacy. We let Google, let me into your contacts, let me into your photographs, let me into your personal details, and we just say yes, because we want to use WhatsApp or we want to use Google. So I think there's got to be a conversation in some sort of way that we, as users of these services that these big data companies collect, because these big data companies are now very, very powerful, and what they do is often unregulated. So I think more regulation, and I think that was partly the reason of the EU's GDPR. One of the things they brought in was a right to be forgotten. So that if there's stuff about you on the internet from maybe 5, 10 years ago, you should be able to get that taken down off the... So I think there's a substantial imbalance between the power of the tech companies and as us, as either consumers or academic researchers, to do much about that.
Okay, thank you, Moore. We're running out of time a little bit, so I want to hand over then the floor to Alexandro Canales Sanchez, who talks about digital society in Mexico. And just as a brief introduction, Alex is Mexico City educated. He was first at UNAM, then he came to DIE here, where we are right now. Then he went on to Flasco here in Mexico City for his PhD. And he's now at UNAM, and he teaches and does research on science and technology, policy, and on educational evaluation. He's also somebody who does not write only in academic publications, but in the newspapers. So he has to write a clear style for people who are not familiar with the professional gobbledygook. So once a week he writes a column for the Campus Millennium, and so he's known beyond the academic circles in which he moves. Okay, Alex, over to you.
Thanks for you introduce me. I am honored and share in this panel with these colleagues. I am refer an issue, open access, but I am my presentation in Spanish because my English is very poor, and I try to explain better if I use Spanish, okay?
Well, that's not okay.
De acuerdo. No es ninguna novedad decir que con muchas otras actividades humanas, las tecnologías de la información y la comunicación han tenido un profundo impacto en el acceso, la producción, la comunicación y circulación del conocimiento científico. Una diferencia y una escala que hace 30 o 40 años era difícil imaginar, cuando el soporte principal era el texto impreso y el límite era el número de volúmenes en una biblioteca o nuestra posibilidad de encontrarnos cara a cara con otros investigadores. Sin embargo, en el ámbito de la actividad científica, a la par de la escala y las ventajas que trajeron consigo las tecnologías de la información y la comunicación, también aparecieron otros problemas y no desaparecieron algunos de los que ya estaban presentes. Por ejemplo, la desigualdad en el acceso y la concentración del conocimiento, el precio de las revistas o la suscripción a las revistas, la comunicación de resultados, la presión por publicar, los lentos procesos de publicación, los criterios de evaluación y las métricas de evaluación. Cada uno de estos problemas ha dado lugar a reacciones y debates diferentes. Uno de ellos dio lugar al movimiento de acceso abierto, Open Access, el primer movimiento que surgió al comienzo de los años 2000 para promover fundamentalmente el acceso libre y gratuito a la literatura científica y que forma parte del movimiento más amplio de ciencia abierta. Yo me voy a referir básicamente a 4 puntos generales para tratar de ver cómo se expresa este movimiento en el caso de México. Un primer punto sobre los antecedentes del acceso abierto, otro segundo punto sobre hechos sobresalientes en el ámbito internacional, 3 sobre el acceso abierto en América Latina y 4 los cambios que han ocurrido en México. Son apenas enunciados, pero creo que podrían dar una idea de el tema del acceso abierto. El primero, sobre los antecedentes. La iniciativa expresada en el Congreso de Budapest, mejor conocida como DIE, es clara al indicar que la literatura, que el libre acceso a las publicaciones científicas se refieren básicamente a la eliminación o disminución de los obstáculos económicos y legales que no permiten la descarga, distribución, reuso y conservación de los contenidos amparados por suscripciones. Por la misma razón, promueve la creación de repositorios temáticos, institucionales o regionales para dar acceso a diferentes materiales, generalmente tesis o artículos, sin restricción. Una de las principales acciones ha sido la instauración, organización y coordinación de repositorios interoperables. La interoperabilidad se refiere a la capacidad que tienen diferentes sistemas y organizaciones para trabajar juntos, interoperar. En el caso de los repositorios, esta propiedad de interoperabilidad es clave para que los distintos repositorios puedan conectarse entre sí y permitan un acceso unificado a la gran cantidad de materiales e investigaciones, lo cual significa que los repositorios, en su creación, deben seguir los mismos protocolos, directrices y estándares para permitir la transferencia de información y metadatos entre sí. La otra acción ha sido atender y negociar las barreras y condiciones legales derivadas de las suscripciones a las bases de datos comerciales que limitan el acceso y distribución de las publicaciones científicas, porque el acceso abierto generalmente ha seguido 2 caminos, la vía verde y la vía dorada. La primera es la utilizada en los repositorios. Los propios autores depositan ahí sus artículos y generalmente puede ser la versión que no tiene revisión de pares o no es la versión final. Y si es esta última, generalmente es después de un periodo de embargo acordado con las editoriales comerciales. La vía tiene algunas dificultades. En primer lugar, que la mayoría de los artículos que ahí se depositan no tienen revisión de pares. Lo segundo es que buena parte de los autores no piensan dedicarle tiempo a depositar sus materiales en el repositorio, cuando tienen otras actividades y exigencias. Y lo tercero es que para muchos no está claro cuáles son los beneficios de depositar ahí sus materiales, ni si eso tiene un efecto en los derechos de autor. La vía dorada es la que ofrecen algunas revistas de acceso abierto, en la que está la opción de que los artículos revisados por pares puedan ser publicados de forma inmediata en acceso abierto. Si no cobra tarifa, es dorada, pero también puede ser que la cobre. Son las llamadas revistas híbridas. La tarifa generalmente es cargada al autor, aunque usualmente quien paga es la institución de adscripción del investigador o el organismo financiador. Algunas de las publicaciones académicas por suscripción y las bases de datos comerciales se han movido a este esquema de acceso abierto. Es lo que se conoce como un artículo en acceso abierto con tarifa adicional por procesamiento, Article Processing Charge. Una tarifa que se supone incluye el trabajo administrativo, la edición impresa y digital, la comercialización, el proceso de convocatoria y la revisión por pares para asegurar la calidad del artículo. Jean-Claude Guédon la llama la APC dorada, la versión disfrazada de los editores de acceso abierto y sus peligros, que es un buen texto el que él resume. ¿Cuáles son los aspectos internacionales sobresalientes? ¿Qué ha ocurrido desde que se inició al comienzo de los años 2000 en el acceso abierto? Un buen resumen es el que realiza precisamente Jean-Claude Guédon, cuyo artículo se titula Open Access Toward the Internet of the Mind, quien destaca tres aspectos. En primer lugar, que de un movimiento marginal relativamente pequeño y acotado pasó a ser el lugar central que ahora ocupa el acceso abierto en los debates entre editores, bibliotecarios, agencias de financiamiento, instituciones e investigadores. Un segundo aspecto, que las posiciones se han modificado hasta el punto de que las grandes editoriales promueven una forma de acceso abierto o lo que parece que es un acceso abierto. Moverse de lo primero, de negarse ahora, es muy indicativo. Y tercero, que lo principal del tema del acceso abierto, casi como que en cualquier política, es quién controla qué o quién obtiene qué. Y eso creo que nos puede dar un indicador de la importancia del acceso abierto y de las implicaciones para la política que tiene el acceso abierto. Desde luego, si ese control de la circulación y la comunicación escapa a las comunidades de investigación, ya se podrá advertir la respuesta y las dificultades que se presentarán. Los problemas que se dejarán de atender, problemas de investigación o la agenda de investigación que esto traerá consigo. También se puede advertir un cambio en diferentes regiones del mundo en donde se intenta armonizar la legislación con las modalidades de acceso abierto. Y aquí hay varios ejemplos. Están las modificaciones legislativas que se hicieron en Alemania en 2013, en el Reino Unido en 2014, en Finlandia en 2014 y 2015 y en Australia en 2017. En la mayoría de estas modificaciones legislativas, lo que está presente es que los investigadores apoyados con fondos públicos, en el caso de Alemania al menos el 50%, no estén limitados por las cláusulas contractuales y que puedan ejercer su derecho a publicar sus trabajos en línea, aun cuando hayan transferido sus derechos de explotación a los editores, luego de un embargo de 12 meses. También en estos cambios legislativos está presente el tema de la minería de datos y el uso de los textos, para fines no comerciales, como en el caso del Reino Unido, o la disposición de materiales para bibliotecas y archivos con preferencias. Por ejemplo, actualmente los datos sobre el caso de los repositorios y los materiales ahí depositados, según el Registro Internacional de Repositorios de Acceso Abierto, la iniciativa que comenzó en 2003 actualmente identifica 4.725 repositorios, una cifra de septiembre del 2019, y casi la mitad de estos repositorios están en Europa. ¿Cómo es o qué es lo que ha ocurrido en América Latina? En la región, el acceso abierto ha tenido una importante aceptación, en buena medida porque se ha dedicado, porque como han destacado diferentes autores, América Latina comparte la noción de que la información científica es un bien común y en consecuencia debe existir un libre acceso a esa información. Y también porque hay múltiples revistas que son editadas por instituciones, centros de investigación y etcétera. Pero en América Latina también se han impulsado desde antes del movimiento de acceso abierto distintas bases de datos, y una de ellas es Latindex en 1995, y otra experiencia que también en América Latina se ha verificado, que es Cielo, y que también otra más, que es Redalic. Son iniciativas que eran o que surgieron previo a el movimiento de acceso abierto. Y actualmente hay otra red, que es la Referencia, que incluye a alrededor de 10 países en América Latina. Rápidamente solamente les voy a comentar que para el caso de México, esto llevó también a cabo una modificación legal de la Ley de Ciencia y Tecnología para la creación de un repositorio nacional. De 2014 a 2017 comenzó a funcionar este repositorio nacional, pero tal vez lo más importante es el desafío que tiene actualmente esa modificación legal, porque recientemente se modificó la Constitución, el artículo 3 de la Constitución, y en esa modificación del artículo 3 se incluye la leyenda de que el Estado garantizará el acceso abierto a la información derivada de la investigación científica y tecnológica. Es un asunto muy importante que ahora el acceso abierto esté en el artículo 3 de la Constitución. Todavía no están listas las leyes secundarias que identificarían de qué manera se va a garantizar este acceso libre, pero creo que sí es muy importante destacar esta modificación en el caso de la Constitución y observar ahora cómo es que se va a garantizar este acceso libre. Todavía la Ley de Ciencia y Tecnología que regulará este acceso tiene un plazo hasta el año próximo para estar lista, pero creo que los cambios legales darán una idea de la importancia que tiene para el caso de México este tema y que involucra desde luego muchos otros problemas.
Okay.
Bien, muchas gracias.
Thank you, Alex. We are running out of time. I think if there's an urgent question or comment, I would like to have that. Is there anybody who can't wait until Maria? Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Very interesting presentation, and it is a quick question about the open access repositories. Our universities have invested a lot in those repositories, and I wonder, are they going to remain relevant, do you think, in the future? Yeah, perhaps to clarify, that the materials will be available from other sources. So do the
Yeah,
open
yeah.
access repositories remain relevant?
O sea, yo creo que sí seguirán siendo relevantes. El problema, y esto creo que es lo que es variable en cada país, es qué tipo de legislación regula los derechos de autor. Sí, decía que seguramente sí serán siguiendo relevantes los repositorios institucionales que ya funcionaban en las universidades o que ya estaban en operación desde antes de lo del acceso abierto. Pero el problema fundamental me parece que es las leyes que regulan los derechos de autor y lo que permiten o no permiten, qué es lo que es variable en cada país y lo que podría modificar o permitir un mayor o menor acceso. En el caso de México, por ejemplo, el Repositorio Nacional solamente acepta versiones completas y versiones aceptadas de los artículos que ahí tiene. Y no, desde luego, los derechos de autor no están en peligro cuando se deposita ahí. Entonces, me parece que en general seguirán siendo relevantes los repositorios institucionales o en las universidades, siempre y cuando logren esa interoperabilidad y conexión con otros repositorios.
Okay, thank you. That will end this session. We are going to be, we are already a few minutes late, and so the next panel is ready to join the podium here. Haman? This was very interesting, your paper. We know so little about, generally about, South Africa. I've been a few times and I've been to universities, and so I was completely unaware of what's yeah.
Muy bien, muy bien. Sí, pero estuvo bien. Hasta que pasen las fotos.
¿Quieres que yo dé la introducción?
¿Me prestas tu hojita? ¿Programa? ¿No lo tienen por ahí? Si no, lo saco de mi computadora. Sí, voy a presentar el panel. Ajá, exacto. Y ok.
Tiene que ser necesariamente muy breve cada participación, de no más de 10 minutos. Es uno que estaba a la mitad. Sí.
We are about to begin. Plenary session, panel number 3. This is going to be about the presentation of an initiative of the colleagues here with me. This initiative is called the Initiative of the Higher Education Consortium for the Digital Society in Latin America and the Caribbean. And the coordinator of this panel is Professor Celso Garrido. We have also Professor Germán Álvarez Mendiola, Alfredo Camay, and Miguel Guajardo Mendoza. This panel will held in Spanish, and I will try to coordinate. Yes, well, Celso Garrido is going to introduce you with this initiative. Celso.
Well, okay, I will switch to Spanish. I will try to speak very slowly because Herman told me that I have to speak slowly because as an Argentine, I speak very, very quickly. I mix all the words, so difficult to understand my Spanish, okay? Bueno, buenos días, gracias por el interés por asistir a esta sesión. Esta sesión estaba destinada, Germán la organizó, para hacerles conocer a ustedes de un proyecto que estamos desarrollando, un grupo de universidades en México, eventualmente en América Latina, para promover la problemática de la sociedad digital en la educación superior. Esto es un esfuerzo que estamos tratando de llevar adelante casi a pesar de todo, digamos, porque las circunstancias no están lo más propicias como para que temáticas como esta generen mucho interés, pero estamos de todas maneras obstinadamente tratando de dar ideas y promover reflexiones sobre el tema. Entonces, en la presentación, en la mesa vamos a tener primero a Miguel, que nos va a hacer una consideración general sobre la problemática. Alfredo Camaji va a contar un poco la historia de cómo se armó esto que llamamos un consorcio de educación superior para la educación superior en América Latina para la sociedad digital. Germán va a agregar algunas reflexiones y yo cerraré con algunos señalamientos puntuales sobre a dónde estamos ahora en el coloquio e informarles de un libro que acabamos de publicar. ¿Sí? Así que entonces, Miguel, te invitaría si puedes presentar.
Muchas gracias. Trataré de hablar lo más pausado posible. El tema que nos ocupa es de gran relevancia. Sabemos que las actividades científicas, tecnológicas y educativas son, desde la revolución científica de Newton, actividades que cada vez más se realizan en forma de red. Son actividades que se generan en comunidad y que no pueden prosperar con individuos aislados y que no colaboran de manera sistemática entre sí. Esto, que tiene 3 siglos evolucionando, cobra una nueva dimensión en la nueva era de las tecnologías de información y comunicaciones. Es decir, esta colaboración y esta comunicación estrecha ahora puede ser realmente estrecha y en tiempo real gracias a la nueva ola de tecnologías de información y comunicación de las que disponemos. Y bueno, rápidamente quiero señalar que hay 2 pilares al menos que tienen que cimentarse para que una infraestructura de este tipo incida en la forma en que se produce ciencia y se educa. El primer pilar tiene que ver necesariamente con infraestructura, es decir, podemos hablar muchísimo sobre la importancia de las tecnologías digitales, sus beneficios, pero si un país no cuenta con infraestructura de banda ancha capaz, todo lo demás será simplemente un discurso. Entonces, para resolver esto, en muchísimos países del mundo se han generado redes nacionales de educación y de investigación. Son una especie de redes privadas, no privadas en el sentido de que sean de empresas privadas, sino de un grupo de usuarios que son las universidades, y son redes de gran capacidad que permiten compartir grandes cantidades de conocimiento, grandes cantidades de datos, materiales de educación. Es una infraestructura que pertenece normalmente al Estado y es operada por universidades. Hay más de 100 redes de este tipo en el mundo y hay redes que aglutinan, redes regionales que aglutinan a otras redes nacionales como en Europa, como en Estados Unidos. Entonces, infraestructura, uno de los pilares fundamentales. En México hubo algunos intentos por consolidar una red nacional de educación recientemente que no lograron concretarse. Esperamos, y creo todo el sector académico, que esto sea un tema que pueda retomarse de manera vigorosa. Y el segundo pilar, más allá de la infraestructura, es la gobernanza de este tipo de redes, ¿no? y es la gobernanza tanto al interior de las universidades e instituciones de educación superior, como entre las instituciones. Es decir, cambiar a un esquema de operación digital no es un asunto únicamente de computadoras, sino de procesos, de cultura de trabajo. Ya se hablaba previamente del repositorio nacional, y en muchos casos se pensaba que era un tema de servidores, computadoras, pero realmente fue un tema de procesos, de digitalización, de cambiar la forma en que operan las organizaciones, y la tecnología realmente es una cuestión importante, pero que termina acompañando a la nueva forma de desarrollar una labor, sobre todo en las instituciones de educación superior y en los centros públicos de investigación, que son cruciales para cualquier país. Concluyo señalando que creo que esta es una iniciativa maravillosa. Creo que generalmente los países que han tenido éxito han sido aquellos en los que el proceso inicia con los actores interesados como universidades, como instituciones de educación superior organizándose, generando una masa crítica y después llegando a las instancias de política pública que toman decisiones. Entonces, sin duda alguna que podemos esperar lo mejor, y acá concluyo esta primera reflexión. Gracias.
Buenas tardes. Quiero empezar por agradecer a Germán la invitación a participar en este 16 Congreso Internacional. Yo soy Alfredo Camaji y trabajo en el Foro Consultivo, Científico y Tecnológico, que es un órgano de consulta del gobierno federal en materia de ciencia, tecnología e innovación. El foro está organizado en 3 grandes coordinaciones, y que son la coordinación de innovación, la coordinación de investigación y la coordinación de educación superior. Está conformado por 20 instituciones, y en estas 3 coordinaciones se discuten proyectos y propuestas de políticas públicas que después se ponen a la consideración de los tomadores de decisión. En la coordinación de educación superior surgió la idea de hacer una discusión acerca de la sociedad digital y su impacto en la educación superior. Y desde el primer momento en que se planteó este proyecto, empezaron a suscitarse una serie de discusiones que nos puso en claro 3 cosas que para nosotros son fundamentales. Primero, que la llamada cuarta revolución industrial es un proceso que está en sus arranques, en sus inicios. La segunda es que no tiene un destino y un rumbo claramente determinado. Y la tercera es que la peor forma de abordar esta problemática en las universidades es hacerlo con prisa, es hacerlo con la idea de que se nos está pasando el momento, el tren, y que lo que hay que hacer es ya tomar decisiones y ya armar una serie de propuestas que hagan que estas iniciativas puedan estar inmersas en las instituciones de educación superior. Y voy a dar algunos argumentos en torno a esta idea. Primero, la unidad tiene 2 grandes desafíos que están expresados muy claramente en los 17 objetivos del desarrollo sostenible, Y estos dos grandes desafíos son la sostenibilidad y la inclusión social. Creo que estos son dos de los temas esenciales. Sin embargo, a pesar de que las nuevas tecnologías, la inteligencia artificial, la robótica, la biotecnología y la automatización parecen estar en todos lados, sin embargo, cuando vemos el efecto que tienen en la productividad general de la economía, resulta que en los últimos años no hemos tenido tanto crecimiento en cuanto a la productividad, y esto es una paradoja. Tenemos una presencia muy importante de la cuarta revolución que no se expresa en un aumento de la productividad mundial. ¿Por qué no se expresa en un aumento de la productividad mundial? Porque la mayoría de estas nuevas tecnologías están siendo aplicadas en segmentos relativamente pequeños de la economía y no están siendo diseminadas al resto. No se tiene un impacto tan grande como en la economía general. Les voy a poner un par de ejemplos que creo que pueden ser reveladores de este planteamiento. Por ejemplo, IBM, a través del programa Watson, que fue el fundador de IBM y que cumple 100 años, tiene varios ejercicios de inteligencia artificial. Uno de estos ejercicios es el que tiene que ver con la medicina, y nosotros quisimos utilizar parte de esa experiencia que hoy está teniendo mucho éxito en algunos segmentos de los Estados Unidos para ver la posibilidad de su aplicación en México. Y ahí encontramos que buena parte de lo que es una respuesta a la problemática de la medicina, que conjunta las principales experiencias a través del manejo de los datos, las principales formas de tratamiento de uno de los cánceres, y tiene esta forma de tratamiento un espacio muy claro. Cuando quisimos ver su aplicación en México, nos dimos cuenta que el paciente tendría que gastar entre 50 y 100 mil dólares para poder tener el mismo efecto. Entonces, estas tecnologías están relacionadas principalmente hasta el día de hoy en un segmento. Y yo creo que hay dos grandes grupos que han estado discutiendo sobre estos temas: los pesimistas y los optimistas. Los optimistas plantean que poco a poco se irá diseminando al resto de los segmentos sociales estos descubrimientos, y vamos a tener una expresión más amplia. Y los pesimistas plantean que estas nuevas tecnologías van a tener efectos muy nocivos en el empleo y en la distribución del ingreso, y que esto van a ocasionar una serie de problemas. También los pesimistas dicen que estas tecnologías son tecnologías principalmente que promueven y desarrollan a los países avanzados y en alguna medida a China como un país en vías de desarrollo, y que los países subdesarrollados no tienen posibilidades de beneficiarse de estas tecnologías de la misma manera en que lo hacen el resto de los países. Con esto lo que yo quiero dejar en claro es que lo que para nosotros quedaba claro era que lo que teníamos que desarrollar es una amplia discusión sobre cuál es el impacto y cuáles son las consecuencias de la cuarta revolución, y para eso organizamos dos actividades. Primero, un seminario que tuvo como propósito escuchar las diferentes opiniones e interpretaciones nacionales e internacionales. de cuya memoria es el libro que hoy estamos presentando, y después hicimos un conversatorio en el que tratamos de ver cuáles podrían ser los temas o las líneas sobre las cuales regir nuestras reflexiones. Es este propósito el que surge con el ánimo de que este sea un proceso que nos permita ir aclarándonos la manera en que las instituciones de educación superior pueden ir participando en la construcción de una propuesta que sea inclusiva y sustentable. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. When we participate in the first activity that have already mentioned Alfredo Camaji, the meeting was the audience of the meeting, the participants of the meeting were mainly experts on technologies of communication and information, ICTs, and others not. But almost the majority was part of different teams, decision makers or researchers that in many ways are involved in the problems that we are discussing here in this Congress. But interestingly, the main discussion was not about technologies. I don't remember if you were there in the first meeting. Yes, you know. The main discussions were about institutional barriers, organizational barriers, educational barriers, political barriers that we need to address in order to permit technologies to develop and also to use them as a part of the solution. It was very interesting that, because we talk a lot about internet, artificial intelligence, about robotization, automatization, so on and so forth, but the main problem was what we need to do with our current problems in order to permit the development of technologies as a part of also of the solution. And this was a very important matter that initially we didn't realize that it would be the main issue to discuss, but it happened in the first meeting. So it was important because it was part of the foundation that the initiative to build a consortium had in order to propose, it is still in progress, the digital agenda of the consortium. What were the problems that we discussed at that time? Many of them, but I can remember, for example, a huge discussion about exclusion. You have talked about that recently, Miguel. Exclusion and how to use technologies to widen their access and to get a more wider representation of different types of students and social sectors inside higher education. It's an old question, but in current times it's very important, and we can use technologies to try to address, but not like as a promise, but just like a resource to put efforts, money, activities, and so on to use the technologies. It's not a miracle. It's not a miracle. It's just a possibility, important possibility we have. The second question that we discussed a lot was this is a subject that I tried to talk about 2 days ago. That is the current model that we have to educate the students. It's a very disciplinary and professional model, starting at the primary school, like a propedeutic way to educate the students, thinking this model is a very old model, thinking in the future of professionals as doctors, as engineers, architects, and so on, and not as citizens in a new kind of new type of society. It's a mass society, much more educated with many different and new problems. How to use technologies to transform the idea of professions and the idea of formation of students. It has to do with the problem of rigidity of curriculum, but not only. The other question that we discussed a lot at that time was the lack of adequation between formations and labor market and the life of communities. How to connect much more the formation of the students, and not only the formation of the education, but also research and community services and third mission in general, with the way that labor market is developing now, and the needs of different needs that different communities have in the current days. One more problem was the prior assessment learning, how to recognize previous knowledge that the students have gotten in a different ways. For example, if we have Abraham, I remember that you and me discussed this topic some days ago. For example, students that are doing very well in maths, on physics, other subjects in high school, why they don't can to credit that knowledge in order to take some advantage in the future enrollment in university. That means it could be, why not? Because of the rigidity between levels and the recognition. This is just an example, but the idea is how to use technologies to permit a much more flexible way between levels and inside each level and between formations or programs. One more question was the weak coordination inside and between universities. 5 minutes? Dos? Yeah. No. ¿Cuántos? 5? 2? No, no problem. I almost finishing. Thank you, John. Thank you, friend. Coordination inside universities and between universities. I remember Hans Schutze many years ago told me about coordination. Coordination is mostly many agreements between institutions in order to permit credit transfer and interchange, student and professor interchange, so on and so forth. We need to do that. In Mexico, for example, even in one single university, it's very hard for a student to change the program. It's very hard. Not to say between different institutions. One more problem is retention. In this conference, we were talking about the retention in different ways, conclusion, and to get at the final the title. And to change also the legislation, regulation, because they are very old and rigid in general. So, as you can say, we are talking about, in some way, all the problems that are now, that are problems, that are still problems now, that can be addressed by technologies that could be Well, this was one part of our discussions. It was obviously not all we discussed, but I think it's very important to make conscious that we have all problems that need to be addressed, and technology can help to resolve them. Thank you.
Muy bien. Creo que las presentaciones que han hecho los colegas informan en general de la temática que nos ocupó, a quienes estamos interesados en esta iniciativa. Ya específicamente, acá lo que nosotros hemos tratado de concretar es esto que llamamos CONESDALC, que es un acrónimo que habla de Consorcio de Educación Superior para la Sociedad Digital en América Latina y el Caribe. Las instituciones que estuvieron involucradas inicialmente en este proyecto fueron la Universidad Autónoma Metropolitana, la Unión de Universidades de América Latina, la UDUAL, que es la que nos da el marco para poder hablar de un proyecto hacia América Latina y el Caribe, el Foro Consultivo, del cual ya Alfredo Camaggi habló, la Red de Universidad Empresas, que es una red de universidades iberoamericanas interesadas en la vinculación con la sociedad, y el CINVESTAV, y en particular el DIE, a través de la presencia de Germán. La idea general que nos moviliza, bueno, en principio hay que decir que este es un proyecto en construcción, que por definición está pensado como un proyecto abierto, es decir, dirigido a llamar la atención y a organizar, tratar de organizar a las instituciones de educación superior frente a un proceso de transformación que se está produciendo, que a todas luces no tiene directrices claras, como lo dejaron muy claras los trabajos que presentaron los colegas de la UNAM sobre qué pasa con la asignación de recursos en la TI, o lo que también los colegas de la Universidad Villarreal mostraron. ¿Sí? Creemos que hay una evidente falta de claridad y de dirección sobre qué es lo que estamos enfrentando y cómo asumirlo. El enfoque que nosotros asumimos es que esto se trata de un cambio sistémico, ¿sí? Es un cambio del conjunto de la sociedad. Estamos hablando de una revolución en la sociedad, un poco lo que traté yo de plantear en mi presentación del miércoles, una gran transformación social que incluye a todos los actores y que por lo tanto requiere diálogo entre los actores para lograr una transformación social lo más progresiva posible, dado que hay conciencia de que estos cambios también pueden ser muy negativos. Muchas evidencias al respecto. Entonces, un tema central que nos ha movido en esta iniciativa del consorcio como objetivo, no como logros, pero como objetivo ha sido tratar de construir un espacio de diálogo de actores sociales, no solamente universitarios, gobiernos, empresas, sociedad civil, etcétera, con los cuales reflexionar y decidir sobre las mejores formas de transformación de la sociedad en la tendencia a la transición digital en curso, que está pasando de todas maneras, independientemente de lo que nosotros querramos hacer, está pasando, y que requiere acciones, y nosotros creemos que las instituciones de educación superior pueden ser un actor muy positivo para contribuir a direccionar esta transformación social, en particular en nuestros países que son tan asimétricos, tan desiguales, con tan graves problemas de exclusión social, problemas ambientales, etcétera, que hacía referencia Alfredo. La idea general que tuvimos al comienzo fue constituir una especie de think tank que genere conocimiento sobre la sociedad digital y las tendencias en México desde la perspectiva de la ciencia, la tecnología y la cultura. Y esto articularlo en la relación con el impacto que tiene sobre las instituciones de educación superior y sobre esto que yo mencionaba recién, que es el impacto general sobre la sociedad mexicana y latinoamericana, a partir de poder generar espacios de diálogo multiactores para tratar de hacer conciencia de que estamos enfrentando un gigantesco cambio histórico que está marchando sin claras decisiones, pero que puede ser direccionado para que sea lo más favorable para el conjunto de la sociedad. Inicialmente nos propusimos algunos temas, ¿sí? nos imaginábamos la posibilidad de que se pudiera armar un programa interuniversitario sobre la sociedad digital, tuviéramos proyectos de investigación, de formación de recursos humanos y rediseño en las universidades, es decir, una gran red de universidades que colaboráramos para desarrollar conocimientos sobre cómo está interactuando el proceso de la ciencia y la tecnología y la cultura con las transformaciones digitales. Esta todavía está como una aspiración. Y segundo, esto que ya he mencionado anteriormente, que es la idea de convocar a los actores sociales en México y en América Latina para un diálogo estratégico sobre las tendencias de la sociedad digital. Para esto último estamos trabajando en un proyecto a nivel latinoamericano con la Unión de Universidades de América Latina, la UDUAL. Vamos a convocar el próximo año a un foro internacional para ver qué tanto alcance logramos por llamar la atención junto con CEPAL, con la UNESCO, etcétera, con algunos otros organismos internacionales para movilizar el interés de las universidades, los gobiernos y las empresas sobre prestar atención a esto y tomar decisiones progresivas para el conjunto de la sociedad. Las temáticas del consorcio, naturalmente este es un tema, es una propuesta inicial, abierta, todo el tiempo se está complejizando y agregando más temas, pero anotábamos algunas ideas de las reflexiones que hicimos como grupo y con otros intercambios con otras universidades, discutir la pertinencia de los programas educativos, cómo hacer para asegurar que haya una formación para la sociedad digital, no solamente para nuestros alumnos, sino también para el conjunto de la población, a través del aprendizaje de por vida, en un mundo que está cambiando las ocupaciones y los saberes que son necesarios para poder vivir en esta nueva sociedad. También cambiar los modelos de universidades, acá se han dicho varias cosas en esa dirección. Los modelos tradicionales obviamente no son capaces de abastecer lo que se requiere en este ambiente cambiante. Y después, por supuesto, ayudáramos a apuntar en los grandes temas nacionales con un abordaje interdisciplinario. La manera de pensar este tema como agenda del consorcio para la transición uno puede intentar hacer, ¿sí? Son extremadamente conservadoras las universidades, complejas, con grupos muy diversos internos, con intereses, con visiones, etcétera. Pero si no cambian, esto va a terminar muy mal. Entonces necesitamos hacer conciencia de que debemos cambiar y ayudar a pensar cómo cambiar para no perder lo fundamental del ethos de la universidad en la vida social. Nuestra gran contribución histórica, que no se pierda en esta transformación. Y la segunda es esta que he venido reiterando, que es la promoción del diálogo social de multiactores, para tratar de ayudar a que las universidades contribuyamos a formar una conciencia colectiva y de negociación entre actores para que la transformación sea favorable para el conjunto y incluyente y socialmente, ambientalmente sostenible, digamos, ¿no? Para echar a andar esta iniciativa hicimos un primer paso que mencionaba Alfredo, que fue un seminario que convocamos para ver opciones y desafíos en México para las instituciones de educación superior ante la sociedad digital. Esto lo convocamos en las instituciones que ahí están mencionadas, la UAM, la UDUAL, el Foro Consultivo, CINVESTAV y esta red que mencioné. Tuvimos una reunión muy interesante, muy exitosa desde mi punto de vista. Ahí hay una liga que pueden ustedes ver todas las ponencias del seminario, los videos, etcétera, si quisieran familiarizarse más. Pero también hemos hecho un esfuerzo adicional por documentar qué se reflexionó en esto, generando unas memorias que acabamos de publicar de manera digital, que son de distribución gratuita, que van a estar en las páginas de todos los socios de este proyecto y que en concreto podrían descargar desde ya a través de esta liga digital, pero a través de Germán podríamos organizar alguna forma de difusión a quienes tuvieran interés a acceder a esta publicación. Acá lo que hicimos fue una transcripción de las múltiples reflexiones, creo yo muchas muy interesantes, para que tuvieran un alcance más amplio que lo que simplemente se logró con las 200 personas o algo así que asistieron a ese seminario, así que estamos en el mejor interés para abrir con esto un diálogo y recibir sugerencias críticas o aportes que nos ayuden a seguir creciendo con este proyecto. Esta era la idea que queríamos hacer conocer a ustedes y esta obra que acabamos de publicar. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Professor Celso. If someone in the audience have a question or a comment, we're still having 10 minutes, and if you want to add something? Professor Kamahi has, oh, okay, there, we have a question there.
Gracias. Me dio mucho gusto escuchar la referencia a la Agenda de Naciones Unidas, de los 17 Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible. Creo que las universidades tenemos una gran responsabilidad de contribuir al logro de esta agenda, que es para el 2030. Realmente queda poco tiempo para lograr lo que se está proponiendo entre todos los países que signaron esta agenda. El cuarto objetivo de desarrollo sostenible es el de la educación, el ampliar las oportunidades educativas y emplear los recursos y la tecnología como un instrumento, como una herramienta para poder lograr hacer realidad el que la educación de por vida sea un hecho y que la tecnología pueda apoyar esta iniciativa. Creo que la referencia que se hizo a esta agenda es importante y quizá este consorcio puede considerar como una de sus líneas el abordar cómo es que las universidades podemos y debemos tener una responsabilidad hacia el logro de esta agenda.
Perdón, quería hacer complementar porque omití una cosa importante. Naturalmente el interés de hacer esta presentación con ustedes es abrir un canal de diálogo con esta asociación, con esta red de universidades que trabajan en temas de educación superior, así que por la propia naturaleza de esta asociación lo que nos interesa es nuestra asociación y de su asociación, diálogo. Así que entonces quedamos con mayor disposición como para encontrar formas de interacción sobre esta problemática que de hecho es de interés para ustedes por lo que se trató en este Congreso, digamos, ¿no?
Sí, yo creo que la Agenda de Naciones Unidas nos plantea muy claramente qué es lo que hay que hacer y yo creo que para concretar esa agenda, yo creo que hay que tomar en cuenta al menos 3 cosas que creo que son esenciales. La primera es que la ciencia, la tecnología y la innovación están en los 17 objetivos, no solamente en el cuarto, sino están en todos. Si queremos lograr, la ciencia es un componente transversal. La segunda cuestión que me parece que es muy importante es que si queremos avanzar en estos objetivos tenemos que cambiar nuestra manera de hacer las cosas porque todos los objetivos son multidimensionales y sistémicos, como mencionaba Celso, y esta cuarta revolución industrial o esta sociedad digital es esencialmente sistémica, y nosotros estamos organizados por sectores, y en algunos sentidos el gobierno por sectores, nosotros, y creo que cada vez más la necesidad de hacer proyectos multidimensionales, multidisciplinarios, se plantea como un desafío muy fuerte. Y la siguiente cosa que a mí me parece que es fundamental es no perder de vista el tema de la inclusión, sobre todo porque la sociedad digital es esencialmente, o uno de sus componentes que hemos visto hasta ahora, es la exclusión. Les voy a dar solamente 3 datos para argumentar esto. 85 personas de las más ricas, dentro de las cuales se encuentran la mayor parte de los que hoy están en el tema digital, tienen el equivalente a lo que tiene de recursos, de riqueza, a lo que tiene la mitad de la población del mundo. Y el 1% ha capturado el 27% de los beneficios del crecimiento. Entonces yo creo que una cosa que no es menor, o sea, no es un problema de moral, no es un problema de que es inaceptable las exclusiones. Yo creo que estamos viendo consecuencias políticas de esa exclusión, pero también estamos viendo una dificultad enorme de crecimiento en la economía mundial derivada de este problema tan severo. Y yo creo que este tema de la sociedad digital no lo podemos ver al margen de lo que hoy debe de conformar una agenda más amplia de nuestros países y de nuestras universidades, en donde el tema del desarrollo nacional, el tema del motor interno de la economía es un tema central. A mí me parece que yo he leído últimamente los 10 puntos de IBM y todas las empresas relacionadas con inteligencia artificial nos dicen ya se nos está yendo el tren, ya se acabó el tiempo, ya no hay manera, necesitamos urgentemente transformar todo, necesitamos talento, necesitamos que el gobierno construya las habilidades para hacerle frente a algo que nos va a avasallar, y yo creo que hay que tomar las cosas con serenidad.
No sé si alguien más quiera comentar algo. Celso, Germán, el público, allá tenemos una.
Yo creo que es muy interesante la idea del consorcio. Creo que habría que establecer líneas prioritarias de investigación para la primera parte, que era proyectos de investigación. A mí me parece que es indispensable tener un estudio comparado de los conocimientos digitales de los profesores y de los estudiantes universitarios en México. No sabemos cómo estamos y no hay un diagnóstico nacional comparativo que nos permita tener una medida. Tampoco hemos podido, bueno, creo que en el segundo tema podríamos articular una discusión, conjuntar una reflexión sobre las experiencias de incorporación de las TIC al currículum, que es un desafío muy grande y muy difícil de completar. Y en tercer lugar, creo que un consorcio como este podría también ayudar a ahorrar esfuerzos, a coaligar resultados, por ejemplo, para la producción de MOOC o para la producción de recursos educacionales que pudieran ser compartidos por todas las instituciones. Aprende 2.0 ha ido construyendo un repositorio muy dedicado a la educación básica, pero creo que pensar en una cuestión sobre educación superior también podría ser viable en este sentido, para encontrar materiales, cursos y mecanismos de compartir lo que se hace en una institución con otras. Si no avanzamos también en una dirección que permita ahorrar recursos, fomentar la cooperación entre las instituciones para invertir en cosas, para producir cursos, para producir cursos de capacitación y de actualización para los profesores, seguiremos cada institución haciéndolo de manera independiente y gastando de manera reiterada en cosas que podríamos asociarnos para hacer conjuntamente.
En relación a lo que dice el doctor Casillas, les invito a conocer un reporte del Commonwealth of Learning que se publicó en 2017 sobre la razón por la cual existe poco uso de los objetos, de los recursos de aprendizaje abierto, los Open Educational Resources, se debe a la falta de habilidades digitales de la población. Entonces, lo que propone Miguel Ángel Casillas es de conocer qué saben nuestros estudiantes, nuestros profesores, y cómo podemos abundar y abonar a que sea cada vez más amplio el acceso a las tecnologías a través del desarrollo de habilidades digitales. Entonces, el reporte del Commonwealth of Learning está en línea y lo pueden consultar gratuitamente.
Sí, yo querría, respecto a lo que decía Miguel, de acuerdo con lo que señalaba, por supuesto, enfatizar también que creo que a nosotros nos preocupa mucho hacer evidente que estamos ante una ventana de oportunidad histórica fantástica, digamos, ¿no? La sociedad digital es una terrible amenaza que avanza a una velocidad descomunal. Todo el tiempo estamos enfrentándonos a esto que dice Alfredo, la robótica, la inteligencia artificial y lo que sabe de nosotros Facebook y de qué va a hacer los rusos con el control de los procesos políticos y qué va a hacer Trump con los votos en Estados Unidos. Todo es un mundo en donde parece que esto es una cosa fuera de control. Y en realidad nosotros creemos que hay que ayudar para hacer evidente dos cosas. Primero, además de toda esta cosa de tanto glamour, de presencia en la prensa y demás, hay una potencialidad de desarrollo social positivo para la gran cantidad de la población del mundo, que podría acceder a la educación, a controles de salud, en fin, a cantidad de elementos que podrían mejorarse a través del uso racional de las TIC, bien canalizados, y en donde las universidades tenemos la obligación de ayudar a hacerlo evidente y a ver cómo se implementa. Para los colegas extranjeros también vale la pena hacer evidente un segundo elemento de motivación de nuestra iniciativa. Las universidades en América Latina estamos muy amenazadas. Hay un grave problema presupuesto, hay una reacción anticientífica en muchos gobiernos, muy grave. Con lo cual necesitamos defendernos. Y parte de la defensa consiste en un buen ataque, ¿no? Necesitamos mostrar que somos muy importantes en la sociedad y parte de esta iniciativa tiene esa vocación. Nosotros creemos que somos muy importantes, que tenemos mucho para aportar y que hay que movernos para que esto ocurra y para defendernos no por nosotros y por nuestro sueldo, sino por lo que significamos en el desarrollo de la vida social, de la creación de condiciones de bienestar, de superación de la pobreza, etc. Esto es un compromiso que tenemos como instituciones que nos parece irrenunciable, ¿sí? Probablemente a lo mejor en otros espacios del mundo no es tan evidente, pero en América Latina sí es una urgencia que nos convoca. Bueno, las universidades latinoamericanas tenemos una larga vocación social, digamos, ¿no? Estamos involucrados en los procesos sociales casi desde el origen, digamos, ¿no? Pero ahora estamos más que nunca llamados a tener actitudes positivas para la sociedad, contribuyendo con nuestros saberes para que las cosas vayan de la mejor manera.
Bueno, pues muchas gracias. Estamos ya con el tiempo tirano. Si queremos dar lugar a una pregunta más, estamos por el cierre del... Una y ya, sí, porque tenemos que hacer el cierre del... La última y nos vamos.
Muy simple agradecer, admirar de esta gran iniciativa, la disposición de sumarnos en lo que esté a nuestro alcance y resalto lo que dijo el doctor Celso, la responsabilidad histórica. Creo que eso es impactante. Lo que puede hacer un educador, lo que puede hacer una universidad, tiene un impacto trascendente de muy largo alcance. Muchas gracias, felicidades.
Bueno, pues muchas gracias a todos. Thank you very much. And now we're going to change the order of this place because we are about to close the event. Yes, we're going to have the closure of this conference with the chair Hans Schult, Professor Hans Schult, and well, we're very happy about this. Yes, we have Mitze here with us, Maria Slowy, Muir, yes, Houston. We're going to have the conference report, the invitation for the next conference, and of course the final words.
They all want to go for lunch.
Yeah, I know. Half of the people are already full, and half of the people at the podium would like to.
Yeah.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, please take your seat. We are going to move on to the last and final session of this conference. And we're going to start, as we always do. There is a certain pattern to these higher education reform conferences, and that is that one or two of our colleagues try to make sense in 10 minutes of what they heard and what the conference was all about, which is here more of a challenge for people who are not Spanish speaking. So we already had the chance to read the translation, which was in some cases funny and in most not very precise. I call then on Maria Sloy and Wietse de Vries, our two rapporteurs, to make some kind, help us to make sense of what we heard here at the conference. And they have about 10 to 12 minutes, and there could be comments from the audience as well. So would you like to start, Maria or Wietse? Okay.
Buenas tardes, I think now it is at this stage. We know everybody wants to go for lunch. We're going to keep our comments short. It's a real honor to be invited back a second time, where this conference was hosted 10 years ago, to give some concluding reflections, along with my esteemed colleague, Wietse de Vries. I'll say a few words and then hand over to him. The overarching focus of this series of international conferences concerns the reform of higher education. And congratulations to Germain and colleagues here in Mexico for selecting a very important topic of digitalization in higher education for this particular conference. From the policy reform perspective, three themes out of many stood out for me. The first of these concerns the contradictions or tensions between different arms of governments in many of our countries in relation to the area of digitalization, objectives, policies, and priorities. We've heard examples of lofty ambitions at national, regional and international levels on the potential role of digitalization in higher education. And we've also heard, actually, some very interesting examples of specific projects and really innovative activities in practice, particularly in relation to the area of teaching and learning. However, we also heard about lack of follow-through in terms very often of investment. The final panel talked about barriers at organizational and institutional levels. And at a global level, we see lack of investment, for example, in relation to the Millennium Development Goals. But also, in some of our countries, some policies appear to be in active contradiction of each other. We heard the very interesting example, if I understood it correctly, from Japan, where on the one hand, there's a major policy push relating to the objective of promotion of digitalization and wider access using e-learning and the like in higher education. Yet at the same time, the legal statutes on the establishment of a university require that it should have a physical campus. So it should not be virtual, but have a real bricks and mortar presence. A second theme, which I heard, concerns wider access and expansion of lifelong learning opportunities. And we heard throughout the 3 days a great deal about the potential of digital technologies to open access, particularly for lifelong learning. And also very, very interesting examples in practice of how digital technologies can help to expand lifelong learning opportunities. The debate on MOOCs, the pros and cons and the realities and the rhetoric, we also heard debated. For me, I heard some of the most convincing examples of actually the enormous numbers of people currently being reached by MOOCs. And the development of consortia. My own university is involved in one in Europe, which involves 280 institutions of higher education around a range of the current major platforms. On the other hand, or as we discussed in the first panel, the other side of a double-edged sword, we also heard about potential dangers that digital learning opportunities might be too readily and too often considered as perhaps a quick fix in relation to expanding higher education opportunities, which many of our governments wish to set as an objective. And we heard about ambitious aims here in Mexico, despite significant funding problems for the existing universities, if I understand correctly. So a danger, it seems to me, here lies in the possibility that e-learning and the like become offered as a way of meeting or providing for perhaps some of our more vulnerable groups of learners. For example, we heard here discussion about intercultural universities here in Mexico, and the very students who may actually need more support perhaps are being potentially marginalized into certain forms of provision. And a major theme underlying this conference and others, implicitly or explicitly, has been around diversification and stratification in higher education. And the third and final theme, before I hand over to Vitsi, is the balance, the continuing debate about the balance of public and private. Some offerings are made free in the beginning, but then have an underlying commercialization objective, perspective underlying them. And Charles Ornelas discussed the term, and a term that I'm really looking forward to seeing how this machine behind me translates, philocapitalism. Sorry, philanthropocapitalism. I'd love to see what it makes of this, but basically the balance and the overlap between philanthropy moving into capitalism and commercialization. So these are very brief reflections, and my reflections have focused, shall we say, more on, from a traditional policy analysis perspective. We're left with a question as to whether this perspective is actually sufficient in the current environment, and this is where Vitsis brings these concluding observations to a wider and we'll see more challenging perspective.
Thank you, Maria. It's very hard to summarize this conference because it's a very broad theme, perhaps too broad for 3 days in a row. One of the problems for us as summarizers is that we had discussions on very different levels. First level is the coming of digital society at large, which nobody knows what it will bring. There are clearly optimists and pessimists. According to the papers, the pessimists are dominant among academics. But if one reviews the recent history of government investment, the government is very much convinced that the future will be bright. All we need to do is invest more. So there's a huge discussion about the future, and up till now, despite all artificial intelligence, nobody knows what the future will bring. This is a philosophical debate, and we are then faced with a lower level about what it means for different societies and countries and actors. At this level, as Judith Kalman pointed out, there are different societies. We had different societies, we will have different societies, and according to the papers presented, in each country or region, the ideas and policies that spring up are very different, and each country or society seems to have its own perspective of what the future will bring. So it's a huge diversity. It gets even more diverse when we talk about universities, or what ICT will mean for, or already means for, universities. Here we saw different perspectives. A very neat summarization of that was presented by Dr. Yamamoto, who said that we have to choose between 3 options. One is to do teaching and research without artificial intelligence, the traditional way. The other one is supported by artificial intelligence. And the third, and very credible option, is let artificial intelligence do our research and teaching, which would make us here, all present, completely obsolete, and we can retire. We are near the age of retirement here in this panel, so that's okay. But it leads to very different optics. One optic of adapting us as universities to ICT is focus on reform, which has been the central theme of all the previous conferences. And that's the focus that still predominates in the public sector, I guess, where we ask for government policies and government investments and try to come up with MOOCs or learning management platforms or whatever, and organize universities in consortia and such. That's a rather bureaucratic way of adopting to ICT. But there's also another current where, which we could summarize as what Germán baptized as spontaneous adoption. At the time we are discussing all this, students and institutions are adopting rather quickly to ICT and using them in ways we can't even imagine or we don't take into account. So there's two streams. One is reform and the other one is unplanned transformation driven by technology and high tech. And reform tends to be slow and costly and unequal, while transformation is going on very rapidly and it's overtaking us in many aspects. Many universities are operating now as professional enterprises looking for market shares, while the public universities still think, what can I do to introduce ICT in the classroom? Others have come up with those answers. And there's also a whole set of ethical, how should we interpret the knowledge society, what does it mean? And what is our future? Here we ended up with the story of a novel by Douglas Adams, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the End of the Universe. I don't know if you have read it. In the novel, a couple of scientists start feeding lots of big data into a computer, and after several years of doing this, they ask the computer a simple question: what is the meaning of life? And it takes the computer several years to find the answer. Computers were very slow by then. And finally, the computer comes up with the answer. The answer is 42. The rest of the novel, after the Earth is destroyed, is the history of a couple of survivors who travel the universe trying to find the meaning too. So our conclusion here, after feeding all the papers into Netflix or whatever, and asking for the effects of ICT on higher education, the program responded 17, which will be our next conference. Up till then, you have time to figure out what this all means. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Wietse. According to the protocol of this final session, we now have the person who's going to invite us for the next of these higher education reform conferences, which is going to take place, well, I won't say where, but he will give some specifics. Here it is. So, Moore Houston on next year's conference.
So, thank you, and I'd just like to extend a welcome to you next year to Glasgow, Scotland, for the 17th Higher Education Reform Conference. It will be hosted, hopefully, sometime at the end of August, beginning of September. The conference schedule is very, very busy, and we have to make sure we choose the best time to get the largest number of delegates that we can. A little bit about our university. We are ranked in the top 1%. I think we're number 67 in the QS rankings. We're the 4th oldest English speaking university in the world, being founded in 1451. Based in Scotland's largest city, which has a renowned music scene and a wealth of arts and cultural venues. It's also the UNESCO City of Music, Centre for Research and Development in Adult and Lifelong Learning, CRADO, of which I am, and of Maria had long established links, being the founder, as she says, and I am now the Deputy Director. We are also host to the Pascal Observatory, an international organisation of university engagement and regional engagement. And here are some pictures of our rather quaint-looking university. So, we look forward to welcoming you to our university and our city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Moore. And at least two of the people here on the panel have some direct, three actually with Ms. Moore, direct knowledge of Glasgow. Maria, who was there for 10 years as a department head, or was it 10 years? You see. And I've been very often to Glasgow and participated in some of the activities there. So it's a wonderful venue, and we would hope to see many of you again. I hand over now to Germán Álvarez Mendiola, but before I do that, for his final word, I would like to thank, on behalf of the group that has over the years promoted this particular form of conference, I would like to thank you, Germán, and your team for a very good organization. It was not very easy. Language issue was a big one this time, but I think we saw a lot of professional proficiency and very many friendly, smiling faces. So thank you very much for that welcome, and I hand over to Germán for the final word.
Thank you very much, Hans Schütze. Well, we are in the end of this conference. It was a great pleasure to me to organize this conference with my great team, and all this effort was just for discuss ideas, for see your faces, to reinforce our friendship, and to promote research in topics that we think that deserve much more development. In this case was a lot of topics around the digital society that, as many of you said before, it's a very big topic that needs to be much more framed and divided in more specific topics. But the idea of the conference was to provide a general vision of the huge subjects, so the huge consequences, the huge impacts that the digitalization and in general technology of information and communication has for higher education, not only in Mexico, but of course in all around the world. So I think that we can see different researches We can see different initiatives in Mexico and other parts of the world, and I think we can put together these all works and try to propose a publication of some of the works that were presented here at the conference. Well, it was a pleasure, I insist that, but I want to mention especially the team that made possible the conference. First of all, Alejandro González Ledesma is in here. That was and is a very important person to me, not just in terms of academic relationship, but in terms of friendship, because he helped me a lot when I was passing a hard time some weeks ago. Thank you, Alejandro, for being together to me. Thank you, thank you. And Mitzi Morales from the organizing committee. Miguel Casillas. And a special mention deserves my staff, my team, led by Elena Torres, my research assistant, Patricia Perez, Patricia Jardón isn't here. No, not in here, but she is our designer. All the materials that you see, the website and the small tickets and all the image of the conference was made by Patricia Jardón. Reni Saavedra, thank you so much, Reni. Always attentive to our necessities, to our needs here in the conference. Thank you so much for your hard work. Luis Enrique Martinez, photographing and transmitting in live the conference. Ricardo Espejel, my administrator, thank you so much for your support. Verónica Arellano is in here, is not here. Berta Vivanco is not in here. Judith Fonseca, thank you so much, Judith. Juana Garcia, it's outside? Okay, Juana Garcia, Juanita is very well known. Laura, where is Laura? No está Laura? Okay. Oh, and of course, Paris and Alfonso, thank you so much. The guys who took all of you from the hotel to this venue. And I should mention also the poems. Poems is the name of the acronyms of my seminar. It's the Spanish acronyms for Política, Organizaciones de Educación Media Superior y Superior, poems, that Fatima Coifier, my doctoral student, is in here. Thank you so much for all your help. Fanny Urrego is over there. Thank you so much, Fanny. Selene Valadez, where are you? Selene is over there. Verónica Marini, thank you so much for your support. Cynthia Centeno, she is not here. And Brenda Perez. Thank you so much, Brenda. Well, thank you for all your support, for your help. That was really, really important to be possible, the conference. Well, my friends, of course, thank you all of you that take 3 or more days, depending on your journey, to be here in Mexico City in this institution, Department of Educational Research of Center for Research and Advanced Studies. Thank you so much for coming, colleagues. See you later. See you next year in Glasgow.